Good evening, everybody. As tonight we have two speakers, Adam and Matt. Stand up and let's warmly welcome both speakers. And then let's get another commitment that so you start first.
Good evening, everybody. As I said, I'm Adam Hicks, I'm a senior turfgrass major. This is my second turfgrass internship, advanced turfgrass internship. And then we'll be talking about internship this summer doing golf and athletic construction, class renovations with environmental golf and athletic construction. All right, so I just want to give y'all an introduction, a little bit of a background. I know y'all like the picture there. The first, talk about the experience I've had. Started out my construction journey, I guess, with my dad. Basically, did a lot of different stuff, but mostly worked around heavy equipment. Whether it's setting systems, it's grading jobs, or their land clearing. In spring of 23, I started working at the walk course on the maintenance crew. And that's when I changed my major from civil engineering to turf. I'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. I've been working there since then during school. I went full time that spring and summer, but went back to part time when I started turf. Last summer, if any of y'all were here for my internship presentation, did an internship with Landscape Unlimited, a bigger company for golf course construction, where I did a full course construction. I was there for 10 weeks and left just before the grassing at Contentment Golf, which was in Hayes, North Carolina, near Wilkesboro. And of course, this past summer, I did my internship with environmental. So I just figured it'd be neat to include this since I wasn't there for the grassing part last year. This is the closest to the time that I was there. Picture on the far right. They had done that right within a month after I left. But here's some more progress that they've made since then. And they're getting ready to open up here soon. But it's a pretty hefty member fee there, so I don't know if I'll ever get for it. So next I want to tell y'all a little bit about the company I work for this summer, Environmental. Michael Pitts, who's my boss. He is the owner of the company. Here's their mission statement. It's to provide turnkey golf course and athletic field renovations and construction throughout the Southeast. So basically based out of Southeast. I know they've been as far as Florida. This summer, furthest I was away was, don't sound crazy, but North Carolina. But either there or Tennessee, they're about both 4 hours away. And it's kind of a weird way to put it, but I say that there's kind of 2.5 sides of the company. You have the construction, and it used to be until here recently called environmental landscaping, and there still is a part to the landscaping side where they mow a little bit of yards and whatnot. They actually, before Mike bought it, they did I believe his name was Ronnie Oliver, who owned it, and they actually came up here and cut all the turf around campus and the sports fields. But the half side of the company is Mike and them also own the Ware Shoals Golf Club, which yeah, I mean it's not a main priority of the company, but it is just something I wanted to include because it's my home course, I guess. Just a little more of why I want to enter this line of work. Like I said earlier, got a construction background, working with my dad. There he is on my backhoe. There I am when I was like 14 or 15 building a seawall. Also the walk course maintenance. And the real reason I wanted to change my major and pursue a different career is I got to see environmental redoing the 18th hole at the Walker course. I got to see it pretty much start to finish. including the pond. I don't know if y'all been out there. And once I started seeing that and started working with guys in turf, I started asking around. I talked to my peers. I talked to Don Garrett, who I work under at the Walker Force, and talked to Mike. I ultimately decided that this is the line of work I want to pursue. All right, so that's all the introduction. I got a little bit more boring stuff, but this is just some terms and stuff you're gonna hear me talk about in the presentation. And I just want to go ahead and introduce them before I get too deep into it. All right, you're gonna hear me talk about Better Billy Bunker a lot. A lot of you know what it is, a lot of you really don't. I pulled this straight off of their website. It is an ST410 polymer, basically a glue, and it essentially holds the gravel and the drainage together while still keeping it porous. Environmental is a certified installer of the Better Billy. And the website, I mean, it changes from application to application or bunker to bunker, but this is the basic rundown. You remove the old bunker material, install the gravel layer, which is 4.5 to 6 millimeter gravel, and you gotta have 2 inches on the face, but there can be exceptions on the bunker floor depending on other factors. Number 3, you apply the polymer. The main thing is it must be dry, completely dry when you apply it. And also, it takes 24 hours to cure. After the 24 hours, you got to go out and test the polymer. You just kind of keep it around and see if it's loose or not. If it's loose, you got a problem. And number 5, put the sand in 4 inches. But it can vary. If you have a bigger bunker and you're trying to drive a big piece of equipment in there to get the sand in, you might want to stack that sand up a little higher, a little thicker, so that you can get it in there without damaging the Better Billy. Some jobs we use this Better Billy at this summer with White Plains Golf Club, Country Club in Morristown, Tennessee, Camden Country Club, and the Walker Course. There's just some pictures. This is their logo. This is when we're in White Plains. That's just what they come in, those gallon drums. There's the guy applying it, and that's that brown looking picture isn't sand. That's what it looks like after it's cured. Next thing we'll talk about, sorry for that picture's a little blurry, but it's the Stick GKB combinator. It's essentially a phrase mower. It's got tines on it that throw the turf back and onto this belt here. And then this belt feeds it to this belt, which shoots it into whatever you're catching it in. Pretty neat. Takes a lot out of having to hand side cut it and hand remove it. It's really a luxury to have one of these. Sign installer. You've all seen this probably, but we were working with 42-inch rolls, which is 3.5 feet this summer. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff there. All right, so now to get into the internship, I broke it down by the job. I was on several jobs this summer. It's not in order or anything. Well, I guess it's not in chronological order, but it's in order of my involvement with the job from least amount to the most. So start out, I actually did start my first day of the internship here. I was measuring silk fence, but I mean, that wasn't really much involvement there. And some of you may have heard of this golf course as Stony Point. That's what it was called before they started the Old Eight renovations. It's right up the road from where I'm from, where I live in technically Greenwood, South Carolina. Like I said, minimal work for me, but the most amount of work, I went there on a Friday to install some overflow boxes on the pond. And there was just concrete and the pipe in. I was there for maybe 4 hours at most. So I didn't work there much, but environmental does have a lot of They're actually going out to sods and stuff out there right now, from my understanding. So, I figured I'd include it. Next up, you heard me talk about White Plains earlier. It's a golf course in Pageland, South Carolina. You'll hear me talk about Sea Trail later. I got sent here on a Wednesday or Thursday to finish up a few bunkers. But they're full course bunker renovation. There's just the steps at the bottom there. Like on Better Billy, but that's just the order there. But essentially we sprayed and put sand in and that was it. As you can see, there's Jeremy spraying it. And here, this picture here, he's blowing it because we had a little bit of rain and we had to get it dry. And it's not pictured here, but like right here is a buffalo blower that is just constantly going on it, full throttle wide open, trying to dry it out. But another interesting thing is this white stuff you see at the bottom of the Better Billy there on that picture on the bottom left is not sand, even though it kind of looks like it. That's liner. This is more of a budget deal. It's kind of like a half and half. I mean, if you dealt with bunkers before and you have a heavy rainfall event, most of your washing is gonna be on the high, steep faces of it. So they opted just to put the Better Billy where the washes would be the worst. And that saved them some money. I would assume that's the reason they wanted to do that, because most jobs that I've seen with Better Billy or I've done have been the whole bump. But then, yeah, you should see the guys compacting with the tamp, and then there's the finished product in the bottom right. The country club in Morristown, Tennessee. This is where I started my internship, really. This is where I first actually did some real work. It was a full course bunker renovation with the Better Billy. And again, there's the steps. Here's just some pictures. I got a little bit of practice. I've ran a Mini X before, but I've never ran it with a swivel bucket on it. So that was a little bit of a challenge. That's kind of a basic bunker shape right there, just sloping into the middle to one drain line that comes out one side of it, the low side of it. But I got to get a little practice with that. There's just the bottom left is just a picture from drainage up to bottom right, getting ready for sod. There's already drained and Better Billy. We're getting ready to put sod on the surrounds. And then there's top right is just us in the process of putting sand in the bunker. All right, I know y'all are gonna like this one a lot, but we did some work at Williams-Brice at the University of South Carolina, Columbia. Environmental has a contract or a deal with them. I'm not really sure of the specifics, but they go down there pretty much every year and do some work on one, if not more, of their sports fields or just turf areas, I guess. This job specifically, and I made 2 trips there to do some spot resodding. Basically, the turf manager came out, like, hey, we have these bad areas where he's already saw them. He said yes. And here's one of the areas, top left here, of bad turf, thin. I mean, it's just from traffic. That's right there on the sideline where football players run on and off the field. But yeah, I also think another problem with it was paint, because areas where there was paint was pretty not good either, but mostly compaction. So we came in with the combinator here, and I'm on this tractor catching the debris. So we stripped the sod and laid it back down. That's kind of the finished product. We didn't pick all the trash up. It was not that pretty, but you probably can't tell the difference on the smart board. We're probably done. Yeah, smart board either. And then this is when we went back the second time. It was just a few little more spots, just small spots. It was a half a day project. But yeah, that's what it looks like. We actually didn't do this with the combinator. We just hand cut this, and that's what it looks like, ready for sod. And when it gets Windsor at Walhalla, A lot of y'all probably played golf here before, right up the road from Clemson, Multnomah, South Carolina. We had a job to do the back nines greens, and well, we skipped one, so we really did 8 greens, but I'll say 9. They went from Bermuda to Prism, Georgia. I'll talk about a little bit more about Prism, Georgia later. But essentially, they were having, if you've ever played out there, you know they had some bare spots, and shade and whatnot, the trees around the greens. But also they had a lot of thatch problems and just poor management, and it just was no good, as unacceptable for the golf course at that point. So I'm also going to go more into depth about this later when I talk about that sea trail job, but it's the basic rundown of a resodding job for us was strip sod with the combinator, fly sand with a top dresser, till it into the root zone, regrade it or reshape it, basically float it out with a box blade and go back with a sand pro to get a little bit more fine finish on it. Then you roll and brush, and it'll be a little bit different for the sea trail job, but after we roll and brush, we lay the sod. And I didn't take many pictures, I also wasn't there for the actual grassing. And we contracted another company out to do it, but on the left, you can see that's what it looks like after it's stripped. Then there's a picture of me flying sand on the top dresser. And that's the final product. I don't have any pictures of tilling or grading of it, but you will get to see some of those here in a little bit. All right, now we're getting into like my top 3 most contributions for this summer. Camden Country Club in Camden, South Carolina, we did a bunker renovation. They wanted to start us off with 6 bunkers that we were doing. I think it was like a test run to see if they want us to come back in and do the rest. There's those same steps again, pretty much, but we were doing Zoysia faces with the rest of the surround being 419. Pretty cool because we were getting our side from Modern Turf in Dalzell, which is only about 30 minutes away. And they accidentally cut too much, and I got to bring some home with me, so that was pretty neat. Got to bring 3 pallets for free. Shout out to Modern Turf. But anyway, here's the beginning stages. This picture on the left is like kind of shaping, kind of getting the material out at the same time. You can see on the bottom, there's old sod that we had stripped off. And then he's also kind of shaping it up there at the green. Then on the left, or on the right, sorry, is just shaping. And here's the side. There's where I went to pick it up at Modern Turf. Middle picture is the Zorro going on that steep face right there. And then you can see in top right, that's the 419 going around. And then bottom right is essentially what it looks like when it's done. I mean, that's not, as far as the sodding goes, that's what it looks like when it's done. It's obviously not drained or Better-Billy or sand. But we had some problems on this job when we came to Clemson to sod the new practice green. We got these messages, which obviously does not look good. I don't know what the rain amount, what amount of time, but it was coming down in a hurry, if you will. And that top right picture, that's the green right there. And you can see how much standing water that is. And it just came out of nowhere and it was not pretty. Gully washer and all that stuff. But all that gravel there, this is all ruined. The gravel had to be redone. It's contaminated with sand or silt coming from the underneath the face, and obviously our sides messed up. A bunch of problems there. That's a pretty rough looking picture. Yeah, it's just not what you want, especially when you already got gravel in there. If it would have just been the sod and the shaping, that's no big deal. But that gravel's kind of expensive. And actually at Modern, speaking of the sod, they get all their, or Camden, they get all their sod for free from Modern because I believe his name is Hank, and he owns Modern Turf. He's a member out there, so sod wasn't much of a problem for them. But All right, the place we all know and love, the Walker course at Clemson. Initially, I didn't do much work out here, y'all know, or if you don't know, they're doing big renovation for the driving range right now because of that building that they put up. Like I said, initially, I didn't do much. I just got to practice heavy equipment operation, or heavier with dozers and big excavators. But then I came back a couple months later, or a couple weeks later, and Dr. Lou actually came and visited me out there while we were sodding the new track screen, about 21,000 square feet. Prism Georgia, same thing we put at Windsor, with tip-top surrounds, and the greens mix was 75% sand, 20% organic, and 5% clay, which I've been informed that clay is for CEC purposes, water retention purposes. And yeah, this was a pretty cool project for me, since considering I work out at Walker all the time, and it was just kind of full circle moment. There's some of the heavy equipment stuff that I was doing, basically just moving dirt or all over the place, around. And then here's the green. This is the pictures I had. I'll get y'all some better pictures here in a second from an actual photographer. But here's what it looked like when we were in the process of sodding this around with that tip top. But I took a picture of the green mix and basically the shape of the green. Bottom left, that's us laying the sand. That's a lot of moving parts there. We had a lot of guys there. Basically, one guy laying it, two guys behind him getting it in place, a guy coming by with a reciprocator to tie it in, and then all the rolls have the little trash from them. So you had guys picking that up, had guys picking up trash sod, and Jeremy watering the sod behind us as it's going down. So there's a lot of moving parts when it came to actually laying it. But there's right after we had finished it, it took us a day and a half pretty much to do big green. I also had some weather issues, but that picture doesn't really do it justice with the iPhone camera, because you can't really see how big the green is. Here's some more pictures. These are professional, not like me. Top left, you can see David laying down the side. That's the reciprocator. Bottom left, that makes it very easy to line all the seams up and pretty much get it seamless as best we could. Top right is a picture of yours truly. I was driving the HD, picking up trash sod, and then here's Austin rolling in behind everything. And then here's the cool pictures with the drone. Obviously, before, during, and almost after, we're getting close to being done. And then you can see the bunker, the practice bunker down there, which they did with better ability. I wasn't involved in that bunker much, but the new crack screen Walker. Okay, so Sea Trail Golf Resort, the maintenance course. This was my biggest contribution this summer. I spent from May to July on and off here, and it's in Sunset Beach, North Carolina. It's one of 3 courses at the resort. They wanted the greens renovation on all 18 greens at Maples, plus their practice green, also a nursery area, and a bigger practice green at their main pro shop at the other 2 Jones and Bird courses. But they had a little mixture on the greens. I do not think this was intentional. I think that's part of the reason they wanted to get rid of it. Apparently there were multiple varieties of bent grass, plus POA annual, or I guess in this case it'd be annual bluegrass. I guess if they wanted it. And then plus 419, I guess the 419 maybe encroached into the green, because that was what this around work. But we went with Tip Eagle greens and sodded the collars with Tacoma. So for this project here, I'm gonna go through a step by step. I was there for the whole thing. I think it's pretty interesting, informative stuff. There's that combinator again, make things easy. Just strip all the greens. That's what it looks like on the right when they're done. Then we roughly got it back to shape and you got the edges right. So for our next step, when we apply sand, we can have a uniform distribution of sand and it's not all bumpy and some places are getting more or less. There we go. Throwing some sand down and it all mattered the size of the green. Mike has a formula he goes by. He knows how much that top dresser will hold and he's got a number per green, how many loads you need to use depending on the size. So I thought that was pretty neat. I'm unsure of the actual formula, but I thought it was pretty neat. And then this was a long process here for me. I've tilled all the greens in. Go about 0.4 mile an hour. And like I said, it was 21 greens, so pretty lonely in that tractor there. But anyway, there's the tiller. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like making them fast and whatnot. Now, once you till it in, you essentially get it back to the shape. Starting with the tractor here with the box blade, we ran over all the fluffy root zone mix that from being tilled, and then went around with the box blade, filling in, getting it back to shape. Once that only gets it so fine and so close, so I went around with the Sand Pro, with the belly blade down and kind of knocked some of those windrows and whatnot down. And then there's a picture on the right of what it looks like when it's done. Then we just roll them and brush them in. Pretty much the same as Windsor up until this point. This is where it gets a little different. I went out there with this ground saw, which any of y'all have ever ran one, you might know that it is not very fun. But I went around inside perimeter of every green and dug a trench about 6 inches down or something. To get it ready for our next step, which was the fumigation. And this is one of the coolest things I learned this summer. I've always heard about it, never gotten to see it. I never knew much about it, but I got to see the whole process. Essentially, Riley Reagan Farms came out there, and you can see the guy here in his Tyvek suit. He's got a Sand Pro with a drop spreader behind it, and he's going around spreading the basamid in or dropping it. And then once he gets done, he turns the drop spreader off, and he's got an attachment underneath the Sand Pro that drops down a brush, which I thought was pretty. I mean, that's like a Frankenstein of a trap right there. But and then after that, you water it in. But before we get any further with the fumigation, I just wanted to talk about the chemical, basamid G, which stands for granular, active ingredient, Dazomet. Comes in 50-pound bags, effective against pretty much anything. Anything you want to kill out of a root zone there, it's gonna kill it. It's in the Iraq group 8F insecticide. You haven't taken Whitwell's class or any class where you know about mode of action, basically how the active ingredient works. Dazomet is transformed into an MITC gas when it's irrigated. Then it goes through the soil pores to sterilize the soil. I'm gonna get into it in a second, but you got to cover it so it doesn't get out. And it is the only turf fumigant that there is. Used to have methyl bromide, but it got replaced. You've taken Dr. Roberts' class, you know a lot about labels. Danger, poison, do not want to consume this. And there we gotta go through a safety meeting and everything before we put it down. And the next step in the fumigation is covered up. And that red stuff is glue. You glue the seams down. And yeah, you don't want it to be very windy when this is happening, because it'll blow you away. So what is step 9? Step 9 is to wait. We had to get off the job for about 2 weeks, where I went and did some other work I think I went to Clemson a little bit. Went a few different places. Windsor, I know I went there during this. But we deployed, came back. Only took us about a day total, 2 days to count travel. And we removed the plastic. Fill in the trenches, made from the ground saw for the plastic go in and get the green back to shape. And the next step was where we saw the collar, that's almost. And that's actually, the picture on the right is actually a finished picture, but just ignore the sprig in the middle, because you're gonna see it again on the next slide. And we had new light turf and Kirkpatrick's turf come out and help us with the sprigging. We had like, I don't even know, 20 or 30 guys out there with 5-gallon buckets, just spreading sprigs on every green. They started about, I don't know, it was some hour early in the morning, maybe 8. Out of there about 1:30, doing 21 pretty bigger size greens. I thought seeing that process was like pretty crazy how quickly they can go with that. But when you got a lot of people covering a lot of ground. But that's pretty much it for all of my presentation stuff. So usually have to have your advice for future interns or just students. And the basic cliche stuff that everybody's gonna tell you: be a good listener, ask questions, be present, work hard, yada yada yada. But my kind of more personal advice I have for y'all is to obtain some knowledge about all aspects of the industry. So for example, like for me, I've worked on a golf course, maintenance crew, and that helps me with the golf, not only just having the knowledge of what to do on a golf course with the construction, but also if I get into running my own job, I need to know, for example, if I'm building a bunker, greenside bunker, I need to know how that surround or approach mower, how wide it is, and if it can mow on a slope. It can't be too much of a hill or else the reels will come off the ground. Just stuff like that. And then that advice applies to anything, because I was also, first time I was kind of introduced to sod farms and getting to see about those guys and how they operate. And it's all interconnected, and you'll hear it if you haven't heard it already, that everybody knows everybody in the turf industry and pretty interlocked. Now, the second piece of advice I have is don't be afraid to try something new. If you're scared, that probably means that it's challenging. And it's a little quote I've always heard: if it was easy, that everybody would do it. It's pretty point blank there, pretty right to the point. Next piece of advice is hold yourself accountable. Even if you don't feel like you're important, you are, whether you're just the guy raking bunkers or if you're the guy shaping the green, or whatever most important thing in your field is. You have a part in you have a role in a company or golf course or whatever you're doing, and your small part, without that, the system fails. So just hold yourself accountable, realize that you matter to the system. And last thing is find something you're truly passionate about. A while back, I think when I was changing my major, I found this. I don't know where I found it. It's called the Ikigai principle, some kind of philosophy. I don't really know what that word means, but I like the Venn diagram. And it just has four main things to consider when you're considering what you want to do in life. First thing is what you love. So for me, that'd be sports and golf. And I do truly like to do the construction. I enjoy working. And I like to be outside, be active. Next up, what does the world need? For me again, I truly believe that the world needs sports and golf, whether it's for entertainment or leisure, watching or playing, whichever way you want to look at. What you can be paid for. I think I could be paid for My equipment operation, construction skills and knowledge, and also I have a turf degree from Clemson, so. That says something there. And lastly, what am I good at? Sound like a dead horse, but I was beating a dead horse. Equipment operation and construction, plus I feel like I have a pretty decent work ethic when it comes to work. So yeah, that's just some advice I'd like to show you. I know it's kind of out of the ordinary, but here's just Mike's contact there. Not much more to be said about the contacts. And that's about it. I appreciate all y'all. Thank y'all for being attentive.